No crime is more serious than murder. A conviction for this results in a life behind bars, but the length of that can vary from case to case. All adult offenders convicted of murder receive a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment, according to the Crown Prosecution Service. When a court imposes the mandatory life sentence, it must also specify the minimum term that the killer will serve before being eligible to apply for parole, so there is a chance that a convicted murderer serves even longer than their original sentence. Howard Hughes. The body of 7-year-old Sophie Hook was found on the beach at Llandudno's North Shore after she was snatched from a tent in the garden of her uncle's home in 1995. She had been murdered and brutally raped by paedophile Howard Hughes. Hughes was arrested for the murder soon afterwards and sentenced to life imprisonment after being found guilty in July 1996. In November 2002, the then Home Secretary David Blunkett ruled that Hughes would have to serve a minimum term of 50 years in prison before he could be considered for parole. Hughes will be eligible for parole in 2046. He will be at least 80 years old. Barry Bagnall. Terry Edwards, of Pontwen in Kaya Park, was starting out on the road to clean himself of drug addiction, back in June 2020. But he was denied the chance to get his life back on track when pal Barry John Bagnall, also of Kaya Park, caused him unsurvivable brain injuries. A jury determined that Bagnall killed Mr. Edwards with a blunt weapon that has never been found, in an explosive loss of temper. He even tried to cover his tracks by returning to the flat under the illusion of visiting his friend, all the while knowing that he lay dead inside. The then 42-year-old was sentenced by a judge to a minimum period of 18 years imprisonment before the parole board could consider him for release. He'll be 60 years old before he can even think of returning to society. Clive Sharp. Sadistic killer Clive Sharp broke into a house in the middle of the night and repeatedly raped Irish vet Catherine Gowing, aged 37, in Mold, in October 2012. He then killed her and mutilated her body by cutting it into pieces and disposing of it in and near the River Dee. The depraved killer, originally from Sealand but who had an address at Coed E Park Industrial Estate in Bethesda, had a chilling criminal past including the rape of a teenage girl and trying to strangle a woman before sexually assaulting her. The court heard how he harbored perverted sexual fantasies involving the gagging, raping and murdering of women, which he acted out on Miss Gowing. Sharp was sentenced to a 37-year minimum term in January 2013. He will be eligible for parole in 2050, he will be 83 years old. David Redfern. The most recent murder conviction passed in North Wales was handed to David Redfern. The 46-year-old, from Barmouth, murdered a 71-year-old woman, who mistook his home for a B&B and got into his bed. Back in July 2022, Margaret Barnes had been visiting the seaside town of Barmouth from her home in Birmingham, when she mistook Redfern's home for her accommodation that was just a few doors away. David Redfern dragged the grandmother by her heels down the stairs and flung her out of the house before her 21-stone killer caused unsurvivable injuries by kicking and stamping on her. The judge, Justice Charles Bourne, imposed a minimum sentence of 14 years. This means Redfern cannot be released until 2037 when he is 60 years old. Emma Berry. Emma Berry killed Dean Michael Bennett at HMO in Connors Quay in May 2021. The chronic alcoholic, who also lived at Old Quay House with the victim, was heard hours before the murder telling others she was going to stab Mr. Bennett. Emergency services were called but tragically Mr. Bennett could not be saved from his chest wound. His killer hadn't gone far, she was found in her own room by police rocking back and forth and making funny noises when arrested. Berry will serve a minimum of 16 years behind bars after she confessed to the murder. The 47-year-old will not be considered for release until 2037 when she'll be 63. Madog Rowlands. Madog Rowlands, from Wrexham, strangled his 21-year-old fiancée, Lauren Griffiths, then wrapped her body in cling film, scrawled on the walls, and ate takeaway food, before finally dialing 999 a day later. Self-absorbed, manipulative Rowlands, aged 23, had tried to strangle his partner before, but the pair had reconciled, and an assault investigation was discontinued. However, he attacked her again, with fatal consequences, at the couple's flat in Cathays in April 2019. Judge Daniel Williams sent Rowlands, whom he described as a sullen and self-obsessed manipulator, to jail for life with a minimum term of 18 years. Rowlands will be eligible for parole in 2037 at the age of 40. Mark Jones. One of the youngest murderers to pass through the Crown Court in North Wales was Mark Harley Jones. The 20-year-old, of Wrexham, had filmed the brutal aftermath of killing Kyle Patrick Worley in July 2021. He tried to convince a jury that he was acting in self-defense when he killed his friend. The court saw that he used a kitchen knife and dug it roughly 9 centimeters deep, passing Mr. Worley's ribs and fatally wounding his heart. Jones was jailed for at least 16 years, minus some time he had already served whilst on remand. This means he won't be released until at least 2039 when he is 36 years old. Russell Marsh. Russell Norman James Marsh killed his estranged wife, Jade Ward, from Shotton, just feet away from their sleeping children. Marsh claimed he believed she was trying to drive him to suicide in order to claim his £1 million life insurance payout. The mum of 4 was found in the summer of 2021 after being slashed, stabbed and strangled in her own bed, before being buried under a pile of clothes. Marsh was locked up for 25 years, with no chance of parole until 2047, when he will be 54 years old. Since his conviction, Jade's family have been seeking an amendment to the law, as Russell Marsh still has a way to put Ms. Ward's family through the torturous court process for years to come, as he retains parental responsibility for their boys, who cannot be named for legal reasons. Over 100,000 people backed their bid for Jade's law to change legislation that still offers this privilege to parents who kill. Terence Wall. Terence Michael Wall, of Brunmoran, was convicted of killing retired Gerald Corrigan by shooting him with a crossbow bolt said to be capable of slaying a bear. The incident happened near Holyhead on Good Friday 2019. Justice Nerys Jefford, overseeing the case, said this was a vicious murder where the killer tried to convince the jury with an elaborate story that he had been in the area at the time 74-year-old Corrigan was shot for having gay sex. Instead, he clearly had a plan to kill on that bank holiday weekend. Terence was jailed at the age of 39. After serving the minimum term of his sentence of 31 years, he will be able to apply for release once he is 70 years old in 2050.